Hello and welcome. It's episode number 47 of the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast. My name is Frances Echeverria, licensed marriage and family therapist. Deanna Silverman out this week, but I am joined by a guest who's going to be talking about a project that she is working on that involves sitting down for a calm conversation with the man who sexually assaulted her. We'll be talking to Erica in just a minute, but before we get started, I want to say thank you for listening to the podcast, and if you have not done so already, please subscribe and rate. A brief disclaimer as well is that the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast is for informational purposes only, does not constitute medical advice, and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you have regarding a medical condition. And if you're looking to follow us online, you can look for us at H Humanitarians Podcast on Instagram. Deanna goes by Hilarious Humanitarian, and I am Shut Up Skippy. You can also check out the websites hilarioushumanitarian.com and shutupskippy.com. So I am joined by Erica Hart. She has a project that has been getting quite a bit of coverage that you're currently in the editing stages of. Is that what's going on?
Yes. I'm currently in post for my short documentary, Gray Area.
So I just want to say thank you first for joining me. We have a mutual friend that I met through radio, and I saw the article in The Advocate and thought, oh my God, this woman is insanely brave. So can you tell us about Gray Area? So
actually, I've been assaulted a number of times, and I've been raped. I'm a survivor of rape and assault. But I think the first time I was assaulted was 2012. And unless I'm forgetting things, which could be the case as well, but the man that assaulted me in 2012 was named John. And in 2016, 4 years later, after the presidential election, I found a message in my Facebook other category, people that aren't my Facebook friends. And it was John. And he was a man that I had no relationship with at all. It was at a party, and my only access to this person was that he assaulted me 4 years prior. But he reached out and let me know that he was thinking about me and was very sorry and remorseful and had thought a lot about that night. So that was in 2016, and I thanked him for his message and kind of left it at that. And then during Me Too, the following year, we reached back out to each other and just sort of said like, oh, I'm kind of, I'm thinking about you, and I'm thinking about that night, with everything that's going on with Me Too. Like, I've been very emotional. And I said, maybe sometime we can have a conversation together and it might be healing. And so we were planning on doing a phone call together. And right before we were about to do it, he was like, John said, this is great. I really just want to sit down and tell you my life story. And I said, that's not how this is going to go.
I'm not here to make you feel better.
Right. Like, so I put a stop to it. That was right around Me Too, when Me Too was first happening. And I just said, this conversation has to happen on my terms. I fully understand you're a human with a full life story, but that my access to you is you having assaulted me. And I need to do this conversation on my own. And so, being a documentary filmmaker, I started thinking, I wonder if there's a way I can document this. And people were amazed that I was even having these. All we were doing was messaging on Facebook. I didn't know what his face looked like. I didn't look at his Facebook profile. We weren't friends. I didn't know I couldn't remember his face. I couldn't remember his voice. But then I just started thinking like, would you put your name, your true full name, and your face to what you did? Would you come on camera and do this? And I have this unique opportunity, not only as a documentary filmmaker, but as someone that is having this conversation with someone who assaulted me as a survivor, but feeling like it's a productive conversation and it's a safe conversation. And I don't think every survivor has that opportunity. nor do I think every survivor should speak with their assaulter. And so the concept for gray area was born. And once I proposed to John that he would come and show his face and talk about what he'd done to me, then instantly, like, wheels started getting in motion, and I made a short documentary. 2 months ago, I think we shot, and I'm editing it now, so it should be able to be seen in the next few months, I hope.
Oh God, I have so many questions
hearing
your story. First of all, so let's talk a little bit about how common sexual assault is. Now we can go to like the full, in the news lately, there have been the stories of stranger rape and joggers and things of that nature, right? Like those are the stories that we hear that are blasted all over the news, and rightfully so, in evoking a lot of fear. But sexual assault happens on so many levels, and often with people that and so I don't even know where to go with this other than to just have a conversation about you said that it's happened several times. Sometimes you don't know because of either altered states of like being, right? Or does this even count?
Totally. Absolutely. I talked about it in the film, but it took me a long time to call the night with John sexual assault. It took me a long time to call the time I was raped rape. I still, it's been 2 years since I was raped, and I still sometimes wonder if I'm lying. If I still don't believe myself. Maybe it doesn't count. It wasn't bad enough. And yeah, it's totally true. It's like every single time I've been assaulted, it was from someone I knew. It only happened once. It wasn't a repeat offender. It happened in a place that I was safe, and I felt safe. It wasn't behind an alley at Law and Order SVU. It was on a couch or a mattress at a party, And so it's really hard. I think our brain tells us really tricky stories. And I think like the night with John, I told myself it was just another drunk, slutty night, like so many drunk, slutty nights I've had in my life. And I think on his end, after having the conversation with him, I know that on his end, he told himself it was just another night of a woman rejecting him.
Really? Well, I don't want to say I give him credit for owning up to it, because I think that lowers the standard and the bar. Like I think the bravery in this is that you sat down with the man that did it, and I guess he reached out, and I don't want to totally, oh no, I'll take that back. Like, no, there's a villain in the story. And I think sometimes do people have, do they mix messages or read things wrong or whatever? But at some point, where do you take personal accountability that, even if you were drunk that night, there's a point where consent is consent, and maybe you should just stop touching somebody if it's clear. We saw this in the news with the swimmer from the Ivy League school or wherever it was. I can't remember his name. I don't really even give a shit what his name was.
Yeah.
But it's this, boys will be boys, and maybe women need to be more protective. I've caught myself doing that, and listening to your story, it makes me angry because I've found myself going, well, maybe I was being too nice. Maybe I was sending the wrong signals, or, I don't know. It makes me think, but I don't give a shit about his story. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people, their main question to me, once they hear about the film is how did you get him to agree to it? Right.
Exactly. Okay. Because his face and his voice are on it. Right.
Right. And that is the thing that is so confusing to them. How did he agree to it? Is he going to get arrested after this? These
Good
things.
questions.
And I get that is very confusing, because we don't see, all we have seen so far is monsters get taken down, right? Which is great. I think that there are monsters that need to be taken down. But in my mind, no, John does not deserve any sort of award for coming to my house and taking ownership and putting his face and name to this, because he did it. And that's just the decent thing to do. But at the same time, it is really, it's something we're not seeing. It's something we only see people take ownership for it after being accused.
Right.
He reached out to me first.
Right.
So that's the sort of amazing thing about it. I think there is a sort of bravery to it. I don't think he deserves an award. He did something horrible, but he's taking ownership for it. And I think that also I put together a crew of all female identifying people. And so he walked into this space of women that had been working together all day and knew exactly what he did to me 6 years ago, whereas no one in his life knows what he did to me. And so he walked into this room of women that are supporting me and made me feel really safe and knew the worst thing he'd ever done. But I think everyone held space for him too. Like, he wasn't walking into a really hostile situation. I told him that, like, I want this to feel as safe and supported of a conversation as it can. And if you need to stop, if I need to stop, if a crew member needs to stop at any time, that is fine. And so I feel like we back and forth held space for each other, whilst I still was honest about, you did something that sucked.
Yeah.
And it didn't ruin my life, but it affected it and it sucked.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to bring up is, I guess, just us having a candid conversation about the fact that, the statistics are kind of all over. I've heard everything from like 1 in 3, 1 in 4 women has been sexually assaulted. If you get into now, as we've talked about, you talked about the Me Too movement, about the normalization of sexual harassment and things like that. I'm sure the numbers are much higher than that. But I think it's important to point out that it's not, it doesn't just happen with strangers in back alleys. It doesn't just happen with random guys at parties. Sexual assault happens sometimes with people that you're in a loving relationship, I use air quotes, with. That being involved with somebody is not 100% consent all of the time. And I think sometimes, I know I've in my practice working in mental health, had to kind of explain that to women. I say women, I know that sexual assault happens with men. I am not minimizing that, but let's talk about this one, because I think sometimes that comes up. Well, men get assaulted too. That's true. But right now we're talking about this. But you don't owe your body to anybody. And I think like somewhere we lost that in translation.
Right. And that's so interesting too, because throughout this process of asking John to take ownership for what he had done, and I would love to have conversations with other men that have assaulted me as well someday, but John was the start. It's, I've asked myself to take ownership for things I've done as well. And though I feel like I've done a really honest look at my history and my behavior and feel in my heart that I haven't assaulted, I feel like there's been behaviors that aren't fully consensual. I feel like I've been in a relationship with someone and sent a naked picture, sent a selfie without asking beforehand, just assuming like, oh, the guy I slept with last night wants to get a selfie from me. Like, he wants to see my ass, doesn't he? But I didn't ask. And how is that any different than when we complain about dick pics, unsolicited dick pics?
That's a good point.
So, yeah. So I'm trying to balance taking ownership for my own behaviors with not blaming myself as a survivor as well. And it is murky. Like, it does confuse me. I am a survivor, and I don't 100% of the time know if I did everything as consensually as possible.
So if I'm going to jump around a little bit, but one of the things that and I think what you bring up is that we have to challenge our own preconceived notions and fight with this cognitive dissonance that we're having over this topic. I've always been a fan, or maybe I've just normalized it, that like I say, like modesty is lost. We live in an age where we've kind of learned what gets us attention sometimes is like making our bodies commodities, putting ourselves out there, for, you're having a bad day, put a picture on the internet that shows your boobs. You'll get a lot of likes, that kind of stuff. And I've been I have been judgmental in that sometimes when people complain to me that they get things like dick pics, I've done this. I've said like, well, what is on your Instagram? What things are you putting out there that is making this like appear to be okay, this behavior? Because I don't get that stuff, especially like having been on like dating apps and things like that. That stuff never happened with me. And I caught myself doing some victim blaming in those situations. And then I come across your Instagram and you posted a photo and you said that it was something in your underwear, and you said you were calling people out, like, should a sexual assault victim be posting photos up in their underwear? And I just thought, I was like, Frances, you're missing the mark on this one. Yes, there's some gray area in, behavior, attention-seeking behaviors, but maybe you're being a bit of a judgmental bitch, because Erica here is bringing up a really good point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by and large, I know exactly, like I have a bit of a following on Instagram because I am really comfortable with my body, and like I love creating images of myself, and it has transformed my body image and my eating disorder recovery and my acceptance of my own body hair and things like this. It's been transformative for me, but at the same time, I grew up in the patriarchy and I'm part of the male gaze. And when I create these images, I'm a woman creating an image of myself, but I can't deny the fact that I'm somewhat replicating the male gaze, and that most of my followers are probably men jerking off to these images of
What do you
me.
mean male gaze? I've never...
The images that we see of women in media and in advertising, it's created for men always.
Okay, gotcha.
The male gaze, like all women in films are just to be there to be looked at as objects. And so it's hard to create images as a medium making person and completely escape that, because I've grown up in that. I completely grew up in the patriarchy. But I do think I can put out an image of myself, and you can engage with it, or you don't have to, and you do not have to follow me, and I'm not forcing you to follow me, and I'm not direct messaging you with an image of my body. It is my body, and it's a public account, and if you'd like to follow it, you can. I don't see any contradiction of being a sexual assault survivor and creating media about being a sexual assault survivor and being a really out and loud sex positive person. I think I can celebrate my sexuality. I can celebrate loving to have sex, and also talk about being a sexual assault survivor. And I don't have to perform victimhood in any way. I don't have to perform my hurt. I can still be having great sex and have a great sex life and still have had these traumas happen to me.
I think that's important to point out, because like I said, working in mental health, I've seen the struggle of women who are trying to get back into accepting and loving and appreciating their body on multiple levels, including on the sexual level, after they've been violated. And it's this weird dance of, well, if this was this bad of an event, it would have ruined this for me forever. But the reality is most healthy, happy adults have some sort of sex life or drive. It's kind of what drives humanity. in a lot of ways. So what I'm interested in knowing, and again, we were talking about your Project Gray Area, and there will be a link up at shutupskippy.com for you to be able to check out the Kickstarter and stay up to date with Erica and her post-production stuff. But I think, we do have a large number of women that listen, and I want to talk to you a little bit about like the body positivity stuff and how you have embraced yourself, because that's something that Deanna and I have talked about. Like, I've struggled with an eating disorder as well, and trying to get to this place at 35 where I don't hate everything about this shell. Like, it doesn't define me all the way, and to be appreciative of it. And I want to know a little bit about like how you've gotten to this point.
I mean, recovery has been an amazing journey for me, but definitely I think my eating disorder and my consciousness of the sexual assaults that I've survived are really similar, actually. I think I had an eating disorder for a decade, but did the thing where I never got sick enough that I felt like I deserved to get help. I was able to be in denial about it because I never got sick enough that it was alarming to anyone.
Right. So no one looked at you and went, oh, she's not eating, or, oh, she's over exercising. Okay.
Exactly. I was able to keep it secret. And the same thing with my sexual assaults. I think I always told myself they're not bad enough that I need to go get help, or I need to talk to anyone about this, or I even need to name it sexual assault. They're just not bad enough. So I'll just compartmentalize them and deny them. And the minute that, my eating disorder recovery really got a jump start when a partner a former partner just basically asked me like if I had an eating disorder. And it was the first time anyone had really point blank been curious. It wasn't like an accusation, it was just curiosity. And I had hit it so well. And it was full of compassion, the question and the conversation. And that really jump-started things to getting some help. And then the journey just like of body positivity and loving my body just like, it just freaking blossomed. I mean, recovery like is hard and isn't easy every day, but I think I credit my Instagram to a lot of it too. Honestly, I create these images that I love to see. I love to look at. I share them because I like to normalize. No, I don't have, I'm able-bodied. I'm cis. I'm white. I'm not like, I have a palatable body. It's not a model's body. It's not a supermodel's body. I have cellulite. I have pubes down to my knees. I don't shave, like, except my head. It's not.
I do want to ask you about shaving your head, actually. Yeah.
It's not a supermodel's body, but it's a socially acceptable body. And so I understand that in itself is a huge privilege. But I still think it's hard for us, even when we have able bodies that, with clear skin and it's still hard for us to love our bodies and see how beautiful they are, because we've been taught that there really is only one like look of beauty. And the more I created these images, the more I see, like, for example, with my armpit hair, I always had armpit hair and loved it ever since I grew armpit hair, ever since puberty. I thought it was so beautiful. But there'd always be, like, if high school prom was coming up or I was going to a cousin's wedding, I would shave my armpits because I felt like it was socially unacceptable to have that. Mm-hmm. And then, like, I just see the progress of, like, oh, I would never think of shaving my armpits for, like, to be accepted or to be more beautiful. And now I just think, like, oh, it's so beautiful to, like, it looks great with every dress to have my armpit hair. And, like, each step of the way I've been like, oh, if I'm going to wear a skirt, I'll probably shave my really hairy legs. And then, like, oh, but a skirt and high heels with very hairy legs looks great. And a long time I would shave if I was going to the beach, like shave my pubes. And now I'm like, why would I ever flaunt those? So it's like, it's this progression. And it's the same with like cellulite and my thighs and, just the more I look at them in images I create in the mirror, and I just actually do fall in love with them.
Well, and I think it normalizes your own look, right? Like rather than sitting and picking at the things you don't like. It's interesting you bring up the shaving the legs thing, because so I do, like if it's gonna be an extra special romantic night, like stuff's getting shaved, okay. But yeah. But my daughter's 10, and we're riding in the car today, and she wears uniforms, and she's like, Mom, my legs are hairy. And I just thought to myself, oh, when is this going to happen? Like as parents, right? Like parents have to decide when their daughter, typically, like when can you tell her she's allowed to shave her legs? And I was thinking, like, can I just have a few more years of her just being a kid, Right. And it's funny that you bring that up today, because we do fall into this very normalized thing. For me recently, Deanna and I talked about it, like an act of, by the way, what you're talking about, I call them like act of rebellion. They're acts of rebellion, right? And I love that. So, going to the beach and being okay wearing a swimsuit and not a shirt over it because I feel like I ate a big lunch, or, stupid shit like that. Like how much life do we waste thinking about how other people are living or judging us? I wanted to bring up your shaved head. How old were you when you shaved your head? Because you have a very beautifully shaved head, by the way.
Why, thank you. I did it 2 years ago. So I'm 30. I was 28. And I'd always wanted to do it. And then I did.
So I had the similar situation. Do you remember when Pink first came out back in the day? The artist.
Oh, yeah.
She had that bright pink hair and it was shaved, and she had the tongue ring. Anyway, I remember being in high school seeing that and going, oh my God, that's the most feminine thing I've ever seen. Like she was badass bitch, right? Like an awesome woman. And as I was getting older, I always wanted to shave it, but I was always like very hesitant. And the partners I was with, I like really long hair. I didn't cut my hair until after I divorced my kid's dad. And it was an act of rebellion. And I've since been told, I don't know how many times unsolicited, I really miss your long hair.
Oh, really?
Oh, all the time. By friends, by men. Women never say it. But I get, and I just think, I really liked it when you keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Like where is that okay to just comment in that way and it's okay?
Right. That makes me think of, I get a lot of like compliments about it.
Uh-huh.
And it makes me think of, how can we encourage all people to like eliminate body talk kind of in general? Like even compliments are a way of like placing judgment on things. Like I understand that we're complimenting something that seems kind
of benign,
but also like it's I'm not conforming. So
right.
So that like someone complimenting my shaved head, they feel like, they're not complimenting the pretty blonde girl with the long hair. They're complimenting the shaved head girl. That's cool. But
right.
But it's still placing a value on my looks. And I'm like, I like fielding questions about like, oh, that's interesting. But, that's more interesting to me than just like any old compliment, I guess, because it's still a value judgment on looks.
Right.
But honestly, every partner I have had is just like, I can't even imagine you with hair. It's so beautiful, and I keep shaving it because I think it looks so great.
I had an interesting interaction once, and I think with a guy he was very very hetero, right? Like very didn't, don't talk about feelings because feelings are gay, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I witnessed the struggle. He didn't know what to do with himself when he found himself like petting the back of my head. Like I saw this struggle in him of, is this like, does this make me like any less masculine. And it's just, I guess, it opened my eyes to the fact that sometimes when things are a little different, it makes people uncomfortable. I will always remember that. He was an idiot, but like that particular moment, I remember telling him, you know that this is attached to a woman, right? Like, you know, I have boobs and the girl parts. You don't have to worry right now. Like, you're okay.
Right.
And it was just a moment because I could tell he was struggling. And I don't know. I like to kind of think about what those are bigger reflections of. Like you said, we don't need to really even be bringing up body talk, but we do. And I think it's interesting to just make us stop and pause.
Right. I mean, an interesting experience you had. And like, it's funny that you reassure him that like, okay, you're still a straight dude, but man, what an opportunity you could have had to be like, and what else do you want to do? And can I call a man to join us and see you like that? Because does every guy have to be so straight? I mean, let's be honest.
I know, right? That's a whole other podcast. So before I let you go, I do just want to say thank you very much for letting me follow up on a creepy Instagram message to you. If people are looking for you, what is your Instagram handle?
It's my full name, Erica Michelle Hart.
Hart.
It's Hart and it's Erica with a C. There's an amazing sex educator named Erica Hart with a K. She's amazing. She's Black and she's awesome and she's not me, but follow her also. Okay.
And if people want to get involved with your Kickstarter or any of that, we'll make sure to post the link up, like I said, at shutupskippy.com. Do you have like a projected release date or how you think this is going to go for Gray Area?
Yeah. So I'm going to start sending it off to festivals. Festival season's about to start. So that's the goal, is to premiere it at a festival. And
that's
then
exciting.
Yeah. And so that will be like the top of 2019 is when the big festivals start. And then hopefully doing some sort of digital release so that people can definitely check it out online, and maybe a fun big LA premiere with, some of the amazing consent advocates and speakers and sexual assault speakers that volunteered their time for my Kickstarter, and some storytelling about sexual assault and just like a sexual assault poo-poo platter of a night in addition to my film. So hopefully that happens in LA for any of your LA listeners.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your time, and I'll be Instagram stalking you to find out how things are going.
Great. And to find out, the shape and length of my pubic hair.
It keeps it interesting. I do appreciate your photos. I'm like, you know what? I need a little bit of Erica in my life. All right. Well, this has been the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast. Please rate and subscribe, tell your friends, and you can find us back here next week with a new release on Friday. Thank you.